All right. So I can remember that last time. I'm just going to get. I'm going to request remote control here.
Of course.
All right. Cool. So last time we were taking a look. I think again the shortcut was Control Shift I. If you want to toggle the console there and all that. So right now we've got console.log collection DB celestial bodies. I'm going to do a refresh here, and we can still see like a reference to that. Now go ahead and put something else, right? And let's go ahead and refresh here. We're still getting a collection. I just want to verify that, right, in the case of celestial bodies, we actually get an array of values. Right now,
Okay.
we see an array of 0 in the console with our console log we have going on over here. Rid of that S, and let's, just for good measure, I'm going to refresh the page and clear this out. Let's just refresh it once more here. So looking inside the collection reference, there is still an array of 0 here. I see a segment here of array 1. I want to verify if we saw that in the first case there. So I'm going to put Control S here, refresh. And let's see again over here. We still have an array of 1 here. So again, last time I was sure that we were able to get some of that information out from this collection itself. Collection DB and celestial body. So let me hop back to, I had a reference of where we left off. All right. So let's try to pull maybe the first item here. So what I'm going to do, instead of console logging the first part there, I'm going to store or create a constant here to collect the value, what is returned from this, right? This call here of collection. But I'm going to give it our name here. We can call it just our celestial. In this case, I believe it would just be objects. Actually, that was the difference. So I'm gonna call this one celestial objects collection is equal to, and let's go ahead here and put collection. So we're gonna get the return value of our invocation here of this collection method, which we set up as an import here from Firebase Firestore. So again, in this case, I'm going to do a refresh here. And I want to see, again, I think we had over in Firebase, we had the table is celestial objects. But let's go to our console. And let's take a look at this project. It was our Vitae project here. And then let's go to Firestore Firebase. And we can verify over here the table name. Let's see if maybe I can modify this a little bit, or just click on it. Celestial objects is the name. So let's go ahead here. And let's say celestial objects to target that entire collection. And now let's do a console log of celestial objects collection. So looking back over here, let's do a refresh. Let's look at our collection. Here, I'm still seeing array of 1, but I'm seeing length of 1 now. And I'm going to change this a little bit just to see if there's a difference real quick. Let's change it to 2 C's here so that we're targeting something that's not correct. And let's see if there is a difference here. I'm still seeing a length of 1. So let's see if we can detect some more differences here. So we've got our collection right here. What I want to do is I want to query from that collection. So I'm going to go ahead here and put query. And we have our collection, and let's limit our query to just 1 value here. All right, let's do a refresh here. There could just be a slight syntax error. We've got there, maybe just 1 more parentheses I need here. Okay, and let's refresh over here. I also want to double check my imports. I'm going to add query to my list of imports here from Firestore. We also want limit, which is going to be another import here from Firebase Firestore. All right. So let's get a nice clear terminal, or excuse me, console, browser console here. So in this case, we're going ahead and we're querying the results, or excuse me, console logging the result of our query here. Let's see if we can see any objects inside of here. Segment celestial objects. Let's see, length of 1. And I see a length of 1 in this case. Let's see if we can be a little bit more specific with this, with what is actually returned to us from this query. So we're going to set up a few different imports over here. I'm going to add to query and limit, and I can actually order these vertically so we can see them a little easier. Here, let's do collection. Let's do query. Let's do limit. Okay. We also want, in this case, let's do get docs. We also want to add doc, and we want to add here document data. These are all going to be different imports here from Firebase Firestore. So again, we've got our, in this case, we've got our const, which is a collection here. What I want to do is actually take maybe all of this and move it outside. I want to test moving it outside of our entire component here. So I'm going to take this, move it up here, and this should just load up automatically for us still. Let's go ahead over to here. Let's refresh. And I want to see if there's any observable differences here in our query. See if there's any filters. Okay. All right. So again, we've got all our configurations over here. We've got get Firestore in place as well, with our import right up here of get Firestore. And we've got our log of our query here. So let's go ahead here and use get docs to work with this collection here. So I'm going to set up a const here. Remove one of these parentheses. And I'm also going to go ahead and call this just our first documents query. All right, it's just a warning here saying that we haven't really ever used it. But let's use get docs. We're going to drop in first document query. Got that in this case. Query snapshot. And from our query snapshot, if query snapshot dot empty, if this is true, then we want to go ahead and, or if it is not true because of the bang operator here, right? If it is not empty, if there's something inside of our query that's being returned to us, we want to get the first document. And we will state here, query snapshot dot docs. And docs will return an array for us. So we're going to access by index the first item inside of that array. So we're also going to state here, const data is equal to first document data. As document data. And let's state here. Okay. And let's move a little bit further over here. So we've got get docs. I'm gonna go ahead and place here as well some parentheses around. First document query. Okay. Let's go ahead and give it a refresh over here. Leave this for a moment. And let's double check the results of my query over here. We have our collection, which is returned from celestial objects here. Limit of 1. And again, our DB is from get firestore with app over here. Initialize app, we're using our Firebase configuration. And we also have initialize app. Let's double check initialize app here. From Firebase /app. Then we have Firebase firestore. All right, let's see here. Here. Okay, so still have to add a little bit more syntax here for this section. Let's add an else. And in the other case, we're going to state that there's no documents found in the collection. Okay, so we'll just report that back. Okay, and if there is an error, then we're going to go ahead and output that error. So I'll go ahead and state here, dot catch. Let's catch the error. And we'll go ahead over here and we'll console dot error that information. So I'll state here, error, getting documents, then we'll include the error here. So let's double check all of my syntax over here. Get docs, we've got first document query, got dot then with our snapshot. If query snapshot is not empty, then we go ahead and we look through, we get the first document and data as document data before going ahead and console logging first document data. Otherwise, console.log, no documents found in our collection. And we move on to our catch statement here, which is where we console.error our statement. So I believe we've got maybe just one tracing curly brace here. There we go. All right, there we go. So there's our one item that we were looking for before. Let me just get my spacing. Yep, let me just get my spacing a little bit better here for us. We've got everything lining up with our dot then. So yeah, so we can leave things in this format. But there's our very first record that we created right over here in inside of Cloud Firestore directly.
Yeah.
So the idea now is if we do get some data, right, instead of console logging in here, we can store it in this variable of data. But what we can do now is we can actually like store this as a state, right? So I could say something like, you know, let's go over to, well, let's actually double check the JSX down here a little bit. There's our router. And then okay, so it's actually the route that's going ahead and passing everything we need to the component. So we could pass this to two routes. I see that we've got routes right here and routes that import itself is from React Router DOM. Okay, so let's see, but lowercase routes in this case, let me see where that's mentioned over here. Only right about there where we do the mapping. And this is where we pass information to each one of these individual routes that are being generated. So we could pass this down to each one of the elements without being specific. I could still store it as a state here. Like, let's say something like const, and let's say something like celestial objects. But since this is JavaScript, I'm going to say celestial objects. We could even say collection, but that's a little wordy. I might just say celestial objects collection. And we could also say here set celestial objects collection. And we could state here use state. And the initial value could be this data, right? Could be this data that we get back from this query snapshot here. But I think in this case, the issue is that use state is not defined. So we got to set up that import. So let's scroll up here. And the import is going to be, in this case, it's going to be just from React itself. It's going to be a pretty core level import. So I'll put it right at the top. Say import use state from React. All right. So we've got our state here now, right? That's set up. And what we want to do is we want to get that state loaded up with a collection, right? With a collection of celestial objects that we can then pass on to our other components throughout the application here.
Okay.
So what I want to do is all of this get docs, all of this logic, I really could go ahead and put it into like a use effect, right? So I could make sure that when this component loads up, we load this information into the state we've created up here. So remember with use effect, we've got our behavior and then our dependency array. I can just state here as like an empty array. Meaning that this is only this behavior that we set as our first argument is only going to fire off once, right? When we have that empty dependency array. So if I take all of this logic here, let's grab this. Oops. I'm going to keep that exactly as it was. Let's grab all this code here. I'm going to cut it and I'm going to bring it into the use effect here. So we're probably still going to get some errors here. Use effect, I've got to set up as an import right up here from React as well. Just a different hook we're using here. And so now with this use effect here, we're not getting any issues. Like we're still able to go ahead and, fire off this query and get that data logged right here. But after we set that data, before console logging it, let's go ahead and set that as our state. So I'll say set celestial object collection, and let's set that equal to the data that's returned here. So if I refresh, let's look at components as well. And from app, we should see that state loaded up with that, in this case, this one constellation, right? That one collection here. So it's been loaded up into state, which means we can do all sorts of things with that data, right? I could also go ahead and remember in this case, we're just getting the first document and I'm going ahead and accessing it via 0 to get that actual item itself. To get the collection then, if I just said query docs, I could also then in this case say document collection. Then document collection, I could pass into here. Document collection here. And so now we should end up in terms of data with the state that we get, we should really end up with like an array of different items here. All right, so let's see here. We've got .docs, document collection. Probably in this case, actually, let's see if I just pass the document collection as that state. I want to see if that will work for us. Let's go ahead and comment this out as well. So we're not going to capture that data now. Let's refresh here. Okay, there's a query document snapshot. which doesn't really have all the information that we need. We really just need to pull the specific instance, which we were doing before with .docs and 0. And then .docs0, we went ahead and ran through data. So, okay, so I could keep this code as it was before, and we can still pass data in here, and I could state document in this case, as it was before, first document. But let's see here, because I want to make sure that I didn't error anything out here. So let's say first document, and let's say doc0. Okay, in this case, we're looking again at the first document, which is being set to our state. But if I take first document, let's try to just pass in first document to see the return value there. Query document snapshot, right? So we parse out that snapshot by accessing the first part there and data. Now, if we end up removing the 0 here, I think it potentially breaks that flow because we still had like an empty array as we did to begin with here. Yep, we've got an empty array here now. So setting the state equal to that data after going ahead here and changing just that one little piece, I could theoretically go ahead and add it. Here's what I could do, actually. I could expand the existing piece, and I could go ahead and merge it with our existing state here, but really I want to end up with our collection. So let's see here. Just one moment.
Okay.
Let's see, and again, first document query, we went ahead here and said query celestial objects collection limit 1. So probably our problem here is the addition of limit 1 over here. So let me remove that with no limitation here. I'm going to say collection query. And then we're going to pass down from get docs. We're not going to pass down first document query anymore. We're going to say collection query. And we then want to go ahead here. Let's see our state one more time to see if anything's been updated over here. Okay, we still ended up with that object there. So let's see here. And again, we are dealing with, I want to make sure this is a TypeScript file. So we've got to follow some of the conventions there of TypeScript. So I'm going to change my code just a bit here. Then query snapshot. Let's go ahead and get rid of this conditional statement here, because we're not really going to be checking in this case to see. We could in this case still keep it as if query snapshot is not empty. We could still go ahead and proceed through to the rest of our logic here. Let's go ahead and state here first document, and we'll say instead here documents array. We want to end up here with an array, a collection here that we're going to set equal to our state. Let's go ahead here and add a bit more here. Going to state document data. So we're setting here explicitly the data type as an array, which is something we got to do in TypeScript documents. We've got to be explicit with type declarations.
Okay.
So let's go ahead here and also state query snapshot dot for each. And again, I want to check here. We have our all documents query. I could call this collection query. Let's say all documents query. We're going to pass that in here to get docs. There we go. Now it's passed in there. Now query snapshot, we're going to iterate through that collection that's being returned up here from this query. We're going to iterate through each one of those, each one of the docs inside of them. And documents array, again, in this case, we're just creating this on the fly. It's just an empty array. We're being explicit about the data type here that it is an array. Documents array, we're going to go ahead and push in each new document, but the data from that document, utilizing that import we have from before, document data. So in this case, if I take a look over here back at document data, that was that import that we have from Firebase Firestore. So basically we're following like a bunch of the sort of conventions of their documentation, right? We're basically working with their data in the way that we need to work with it to go ahead and actually get it outputted, rendered here for us on the page. Now let's do documents here. Set that equal to our state. And let's go back over here to app. And there's our state with one item, which is perfect. So we're not going to log in this case the first document data anymore, because we no longer actually have that variable there. We could also say that if there are no documents found in the collection, we'll see that as a console log. Or if there's any sort of errors with collecting the documents, we'll see the error listed there. But what we should see now is I can take this state celestial object collection, and we could just go ahead and drop it into here as well, like directly render it. Maybe even into the navigation bar for now.
Okay.
I could put it just like directly below. Let's put the state right there, the celestial object collection, right? The state that we've got. Let's go ahead and refresh. And in this case, if we're trying to render an entire collection here, like an array, sometimes it has problems accessing that. I could also just go ahead and say something like 0 to access maybe one of those items. But let's verify here the state as well. It is celestial object collection, which is our array here. Let's go ahead and cut this for a moment. Save this back out. So if it's having issues with rendering that, then what I could do as well is inside of here, do a console.log of the state first to verify what is coming through, right, for celestial object collection without breaking the page. Let's double check our syntax here. We've got console.log, and we've got to make sure to have parentheses here. So we've got opening parentheses here, and over here, closing parentheses. And only one parentheses. Okay. So if I console log over here to see the collection, we can see it rendering a few times here.
Mm-hmm.
That's after we go ahead and actually pull the information, right? So let's go ahead and add another document. And actually, let's go back to this one document that exists. Let's see if I can maybe duplicate it. Let's see. Okay, we've already got this one item inside of here. I'd have to go back through each one of those fields, but let's see if I can make it a little bit easier here. We can sort. Let's go to add document, auto ID. And again, we'd have to add each one of these individually. So I think what we had for these, I'm just going to refer back to the form. Again, we had name. So I'm just going to put here a value of test2. I'm also going to say here type test2. And we're going to add here constellation test2. We're going to put time test2. We're going to go ahead and do location. Oops. I'm going to do string here. Get it back to a string. test 2. And finally, we're going to add here discoverer. And this is going to be test 2. So if we save this one out, we should now have two items in our collection. And when I go back over here and I refresh, we should see that we now end up with an array of 2. Okay, we can see that newest constellation I just created over here. We've successfully pulled it into, right, our application over here locally. So,
All right.
right, so this is the first sort of step for us is, you know, loading it up into state. Once we get that information, ideally the sort of flow is like creating a use effect hook that's going to fire off all the behaviors we need to get that information and load it up into state. Right, we've got some other information here. Like if I removed all the items over here, we would see this console.log. If I went into right now, if I went into here and into Firebase or Firestore and delete them, right? We get that, or we have some error handling as well, which is a good practice for us here. So this information is being outputted. Now let's take this state and let's pass it down. We could really pass it down to any one of our components here, since I see that we're going through routes here that we're generating, and we're the individual components that we actually pass in each iteration that we do, right, over routes. Because remember that routes.tsx, right up here, let's see if I can find it. Right here. This file right here, we're exporting this collection, right? Remember the route type, we're expressly giving the data type here, right? Because we're working with a TypeScript file. So in this case, in this file, it's creating an array of objects that are exported here and then imported over to app.tsx. It maps over those routes. And for each one of those routes, each one of those objects, we generate a route along with the component inside of that route that we're iterating over. So if I go back over to here, we can see that the components are indicated here, right? Home, dashboard, about, all of that. So what we can do here then is we can state, okay, we're passing all these, whatever this component is, we're going to pass it in here. I should be able to pass that state, the celestial object collection here, down to our components here. So let's do celestial object collection. And I'm going to state here celestial object collection. So we're going to pass this down as a prop now to each one of our components. And what I should be able to do is back over here, let's go over to this page, which is again our dashboard. I should be able to go now over to dashboard and catch that prop that's being passed to it now. So I should be able to say celestial object collection. And let's verify here with the console log whether or not I'm actually getting that information passed all the way to where it needs to be. So let's say here celestial object collection, console log, and we can see it being logged over here. Now I want to make sure that it's not getting confused with the console log we have over here. So let's get rid of this collection being logged here. I verified we have it available. Let's save that out. Let's refresh. And we're still seeing the console log, which is means that it's being passed down to this component. So now that we have this being passed down here inside of data table, we can go ahead and pass that on as well. That celestial object collection. And again, in this case, we've caught this prop here. We've passed it on to data table. Now let's go over to data table, which is actually rendering all this information. And I can see here that we've got no props really being passed here. I can see that we've got a grid column definer. So let's go ahead and deconstruct or destructure, excuse me, the props that are being passed here. I'll say celestial object collection. So now this is available within our entire piece here, this component we're looking at. And let's see how it's generating each one of these items. So we've got a data grid. What I want to be looking for in here is something like a map, where we're like iterating over a collection, or like for each. Unless there's no current logic in here for going through a list. But let's see. Data table section. Okay. And then get data as a button here. So let's start to think about, where we want this to appear. It says no rows right now, and I want to see actually where that's being drawn from. Let's see, no rows. I'm not seeing that listed here. So let's do an even wider search here. I'm going to go over to this side. And I'm going to type in no rows because that's probably coming from some file inside of our directory here. So let's see. That message itself has to be appearing for us somehow. So on selection model change item any. So let's see on selection item change. And I'm going to do a control F here on selection model change. Okay, so it's only one. In this case, it looks like it's a prop that we can pass here to data grid and set selection model to the item. Now the selection model is this state up here, which is a string. Let's see. So again, if I click on this, does that change anything visibly for me here? Okay.
Looks like it.
Okay, we can also delete some data here. Catalog new celestial body object. I also see this div, which is really the container. I see my contacts. And so it's all really happening here in data grid. So rows is equal to contact data. And contact data is this state right up here. So what we can do then, in this case, contact data and also get data, is I should be able to just take celestial object collection and set that as our initial value here. And let's see how we can work with that. Page size 100 is not present in rows per page options. Let's see if there's any other information that can appear for us here. We're stating here, get data. Now get data, we've also set up as an import over here. Let's see get data. Let me see where that is coming from here. Use get data, and we're using it for contact data. Now, what I could do is I could probably bypass this. Let's just do contact data. And let's go ahead and change this to set contact data. But then in this case, they're stating get data. So I see they have some code that's dependent here. So I'm going to keep that in place, actually. Let's get it back to curly braces here. Now, get data in this case is going to go ahead and set up our selection model here. And now server calls. Let's see here. I want to just get these kind of all on one line, so it's a little easier to see them side by side. All right, now let's see. So again, use get data. In this case, we're passing celestial object, which is our collection here. But what we had before, let's keep I'm going to keep the spacing as it was there before. But I believe we had contact data, get data, and then use get data with no information here, with nothing passed in here. So looking then at this, Let's refresh. And contact data. Now use get data. I feel as though we use that over here in app.tsx. It's document.data. Let's double check up here. Oh, we use document data. That's right. Okay. So let's go back over to data table here where we're rendering this information. And we don't have to necessarily use this. Let's go ahead and state const celestial objects collection. Or we could actually, in this case, instead of going ahead and setting it as a state, it's already a state. So let's go down here. And instead of using rows contact data, let's go ahead and provide something else here. Let's provide celestial object collection as our rows here. Now it's not going to know how to go ahead and use this information right off the bat. We can see it's being passed, but there's no IDs that are being passed. A row was provided without an ID in the rows prop. We can use the get row ID prop to specify a custom ID for each row, but it does require IDs for us for each one of those celestial objects. Now, if we are getting it over here in app.tsx, this collection of celestial objects, and we're querying to get that to get the documents here. And if we're omitting the IDs, then we could specify get row ID prop. So let's go ahead here and state we have rows per page options. Let's pass what they're stating here. So again, this error is related to a data grid component. So it's stating here, passing the get row ID prop. So I'm going to go ahead and pass that exactly as they have it stated there. And for the get row ID, we're going to pass this value now, but to generate our own, as they said before, basically to generate our own custom, right? To have a unique, to specify a custom ID for each row. So we could specify a custom ID for each row. We could base it off of the, let's see here, if the celestial object collection is an array in this case, for each one of those rows, we could generate something on the fly. Let's see, but I would want something that we could get ideally from over here, because each one of these documents that we have here does have its own like unique ID field. Let's see, maybe I'm able to add a field here. Let's see. Because I don't see any ID field here expressly listed. But what I should be able to say is something like, okay, if we have an ID, let's see if we can set it to something unique. And for now, we could just be very literal about this. I'm just going to say ID of 1. So now this first one has an ID of 1. And the second one has an ID of 2. All right. So now that they have IDs, let's go ahead and first of all, remove get row ID. If we don't need it, we can just set those as individual columns. Okay, there we go. We've got 2 items being generated here, right? But obviously we've got to like output all the information, right, about each one of them. But we can see here again, rows celestial object collection. We're passing this information. Let's see here, columns. Let's see what columns is coming from over here. I believe the columns, let's see, are up here, name. Okay, we've got all our columns set over here. Name of cosmic object. Okay, we've got all this data mapped. Now let's see, we've got columns, and then we're going to say rows per page options 5. So it's going to be a maximum of 5. checkbox select. We should probably be able to select these right now, right? Individually, which is good. On selection model, change item any, set selection model to the individual item. Now, selection model over here, it looks like it's trying to set it as a string. But let's see here if I can at least output this information. So my context I've got right up here. Let's just try to output in this case, just to see what it looks like. I could do a console.log as well. Let's do a console log in this case of selection model. And let's refresh here. And I'd actually like to see this state probably after we set the selection. I could also go ahead here. Let's change this back. Let's save this, and this should work for us here now. Let's just get it back to where it was. There we go. Instead of also setting the selection item to the, or excuse me, setting the selection model to the item, let's console.log the item to see it in our console and see what each one of those items actually looks like. So let's refresh here. Okay, so on selection model change. So this is basically testing for any sort of change. There we go. Whenever I make a selection here, we can see there's 2 in there. I remove it. So selection model is just basically keeping track of what we've selected.
Okay.
Right. All right. So I got this again, console log item. In this case, is just the item that's included for the selection model change here. But what I want to do is also, we've got our data grid, but is data grid a separate component? Let me see here. This data grid could also be, let's see, data grid is from, okay, model UI X data grid. Now, what I want to see is material UI. Data grid. I want to see their documentation for passing information here. Because there's probably a specific way for us to pass this collection of data to this data grid. And they have this little example here. They should have an example of the code as well. Let's see the code right here. And let's look at the TypeScript since we're working with the TypeScript file. And all right, so data grid, let's actually see the JavaScript. They've got rows. So I'm seeing, oh, okay, so we've got all these other pieces of information that are being passed here. Let's break these out vertically so we can see them a little easier here. And all right, so we've got the rows that are being passed. We've got columns as well. The initial state we could set up, but we don't necessarily need to do that. Checkbox selection, disable row selection on click. Those are just additional props that we can pass here. Now the rows, let's see the rows that are being passed here. Because I think I saw, where are our rows being defined? Let's see. Okay, rows are right up here. We've got an array of objects, right? In this case with ID, last name, first name, etc. And so we should see, again, in this case, celestial objects collection is what we're passing here. Let's see celestial objects collection one more time to see if it really matches the sort of row that they have here in their documentation. So let's go back over to here. Let's do a little console log. We've got an array and we've got IDs with corresponding values, arrays of objects. So we have pretty much what we would need over here, arrays of different objects, and the rows are being passed in. And the columns, it looks like perhaps need to match with the information, maybe to be mapped properly for us inside that table. So let's see. Now the fields themselves, let's see, we have field of ID, header name ID. Okay. So let's specify here. We've got field first name as well, but the header name is where we actually specify what displays here. So we're going to have to change these fields to match what we have. So let's start with the first one. In this case, the field is just going to state name. Let's try just changing this one to name. Seeing if we can get those values just to come through for us first. And let's get rid of this console log. I had over here. That was just to see the collection. Okay, so let's get rid of this now. All right. So again, celestial object collection, I can see here, we should already actually have it console logged. There we go. So again, we've got name, and that matches up with one of the objects that we have. Although it looks like these are kind of in different orders. I can see we've got name as our first key here, ID, but it really shouldn't matter, although the fields themselves do seem tied to the first one. But let's see here, field again, name. I want to see their documentation. And it's being listed here as cosmic object name. Now, maybe there's just a bit of information that we're not seeing here, because it looks like it only shows 5. Let's see if I can maybe adjust these. Let's start hiding these. Okay, so name there is not an option. But let's see, planet, star, nebula, galaxy. Let's go back to our code here and see. All right, so I'm not seeing cosmic object name as one of our fields here, but I'm going to go ahead and undo the change that we made over there. I'm going to get rid of this console log as well. Let's change this to name of cosmic object. I'm going to keep it here. Let's get rid of this console log. And I just want to see as well where that should be appearing. So the first one, cosmic object name, I'm not seeing appearing, but let's try the other one. Let's try type. There we go, test 2 coming through. Let's go ahead and do constellation. And that should also come through for us now. Perfect. Let's do here time of year. And let's do lowercase y here. If it's not stored for individual records, we see there's maybe not a value for the second one. I'll just verify what's going on there.
Okay.
But let's try now location. We've got our location coming through. And discover. We've also got that information coming through. Cool. All right. So the final one here, again, I'm going to focus in on name because that is something that we have stored here. Inside of each one of these objects, we do have a name field. I'm just not seeing where cosmic object name should be appearing for us.
Yeah.
If the first one, test 2, if that's missing a time of year, let's check that out here. Oh, so this is test 2. Let me give the ID. Probably got a little mixed up here because this was the second one we created. Let's give this a value of 2. And let's go over here and let's give this a value of 1. Also, I want it to be a number with a value of 1. This should also have a number of 2. So I could have been confusing it a little bit as well. Let's refresh here and see. All right, looks more consistent. Let's see, 2, we have the time of year we have as test 2. We have time here. this says time of year, so I just had the wrong key here. Let's change it to time of year. Okay, it doesn't look like we can change it, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and add a new field altogether. I'm gonna state time of year. And let's just keep it all consistent so we can clearly see S2. Now that should come through over here. There we go. Everything's filled in. And the location looks like there's something wrong with the first one. The first one, spotting location is the name I gave to it. But let's, we could either do spotting location or location. I like spotting location. So let's update the newer one here. Let's say spotting location S2. And I'm going to get rid of the other location here. There we go. All right, so now these should all match up or be filled in for us here. Let's see. So location, I have, oh yeah, let's change this to spotting location now. And there we go. So we're successfully able to pull records now, right? And select them as well, it looks like with this interface, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now if we want to, create a new object, right? That's going to be a slightly different process for us, right? Because now instead of pulling information, we're going to be sending requests to pull information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or excuse me, to add new information to our database.
So, just quickly, what is done about the name then? Is that found in the catalog when you catalog the new object? Would it be there then?
Well, it's when I say here for the field's name, it's looking for inside of each one of these a key of name, which we can see has a value of test2, and a
Okay.
key of name, which is it's seeing as test for the first one. It's for some reason it's not displaying it, that one field of name. I'm not sure if there's like a sizing issue here or if
I
it's,
see.
yeah, it's just not showing that first one. But our columns are mapped here, rows per page 5, checkbox selection true. Set selection model rows in this case should be our collection. Yeah. So each one of these has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But I'm actually seeing, let's see, up here I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But they have 7 because they have IDs, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe it's in the contact form.
oh, actually I see hide true on that one. So maybe I'll probably just go ahead and get rid of this one to show it. There we go. Now it says it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep, we got it back in there. I think it just had that one attribute passed to it.
Awesome.
Oh, cool. All right. So at this point, we're able to create new information, and we're pretty confident over here if we add new documents, right? I should be able to actually go ahead and duplicate documents. I'm surprised they don't allow us to duplicate the document or make some sort of a copy of it here. But we should be able to do a query builder. Let's see here. Run collection, add to query. This is more like retrieving information.
Okay.
Query builder, it doesn't look like we can really do post requests from here, but it's really just like pulling information. So let's see here. All right. This is fine for us for now. If we just have name, type, constellation, time, year, spotting, location, discover, that should be fine because we're really only inside of this form. Let's see, we're asking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 values, right? So that should be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all right, so the next step here is taking a look at this form itself, the contact form, and seeing how, when we actually add a name, a type, a constellation, time, location, discover, when we do all of these bits of information here, right? It looks like according to the form on submit, we submit it. We take all of the data. And let's see. Data, in this case, looks like it's something that should be passed to our form, or in this case, actually, data, it looks like it's just going ahead and taking the data from the form. But I see on line 25, we've got server calls dot update. Now remember, server calls is all the way, it's basically referencing the, over here, I think it was an auth, or no, up here, an API server. If we have like server calls, something like what we see here, dot create, or server calls dot update, those correspond to, in this case, right, create, get, etc. So what we've still got to do is tie in these queries that we've done to Firestore into here.
Okay.
But we can do that here with create. So let's test out over here just some of the documentation on post requests. So let's go over to build. We should have some documentation here listed. Or actually, yeah, there it is. Firebase docs. Let's hop over to here. And let's see their fundamentals. Let's see if there is an example here for sending post requests. So let's take a look over here at build. We have our cloud functions as well. Let's see here, release and monitor. Let's see if we can find, in this case, REST APIs, reference documentation. Let's see fundamentals just right here. So let's continue down. And let's see if I can find, just in this case, we've already added it to our project. We have it set up. We have all of this. Use the REST API. Let's use this. Yes. All right. So the REST API here basically is what we're going to be interacting with to send things like update or to pull information or whatever it might be. We've still got like a URI, right? Like a call to an endpoint. And in this case, let's see if it's, okay, in this case, it's available projects. Let's see if we can find an example of a post request. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So here's an example of a post request, right? So we're basically going to take whatever information we're going to send. We're going to turn it into a JSON object, right? We're going to like JSONify in this case, our JavaScript, send it up as the body of our request. And in this case, they have like a more specific example of like analytics account ID, but I can see the headers being specified here. This is more of like a kind of an edge case, right? In terms of working with, let's see, Google Analytics. But just a moment here. I'm going to double check writing up a post request for us. I can see they've got some of the basic structure here, right? Like, because in this case, create is still just going to take in. Let's go over to contact form. When we submit this form, it's going to go ahead and do, in this case, either update or create. It looks like it's going to update an existing record, or it's going to create, right, a new record here from the form that we have.
Okay.
So, because it looks like if we do update or if we do delete, right, if I do catalog new celestial object, click there, right, if I do update, right, and click out of it, it is the same sort of looking form, right? But let's go ahead here, let's refresh, just to get all that information back. I want to select one here and see how this functionality works. If I do update, that really should load up with the values of what we've chosen here to update. But it's okay, because really when we're looking at this form, we're looking at this case here, right, where we get all the information from the form and send all that information to the create action or to the create method that we have over here. So the data is always passed in here. The way that I can check that is I can do something like, I know the response is not going to be okay, so let's just do a console.log of data to see if we can get that information from the form sent over here. So I'm going to go ahead here. Let's do catalog new celestial object. I'm going to do again, test, 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 and test. Let's go ahead and submit this. And now let's open back up the back up the console here. I'm console logging the data. Let's take a look at the object. Constellation undefined, discover undefined, all this information here. Failed to create new data on the server, right? That's what we would expect, is that error to come up here. But data in this case, what's being passed in, let's go back over to contact form and verify. Store, in this case, I can see use store, get state. Where is get state coming from? Let's see. Okay, it's just in this one moment here. So the way in which we're passing through this information, it doesn't appear to be sending it through for us. Let's see if I can take a look at that object again. Okay, there we go. There's the values coming through here from that form. So for some reason for the cosmic object name, it's not coming through there. So I'd have to see why that individual input isn't working here. I think it's because the register cosmic object name, basically everything's got to match up for us over here. Placeholder name, type. See, we've got constellation as well, time of year. Okay, let's try one more refresh here. And let's load up this form again. Now let's go ahead here and just X, 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 X. Let's submit. Let's open up our console. Let's take a look at this object. Let's take a look at, looks like it should be, there we go. So everything except the name's coming through. We can verify here why name is having issues for us. It looks like maybe there's a mismatch with the HTML4. I see a lowercase n here. So I'm just going to try this one more time. Let's refresh. Celestial object. Let's minimize this now so I can type all this in. Let's submit. Let's go here to the console. Let's take a look at the object. Okay, so still not coming through here. Let's see if the HTML4 name. Everything does match up for us here. And register cosmic object name. We're saying here data.name, data.type, data.constellation. Let's see how we're, in this case, register. I want to see how register is working for us here. Handle submit, we're doing use form. And register in this case is coming, that's the state that we're creating ourselves there. Choose name, we should be getting that information there. Now dispatch. Let's see, I want to see where that dispatch is coming from there. Choose name, choose constellation, all that information is coming from Redux slices, root slice. Redux slices, root slice. Let's see, Redux slices, root slice, state.name, state.type. Okay, let's see the name of cosmic object. Okay. Action payload. We go ahead here and we create that, we take that information there. So it should be matching up here with state.name. Let's go back over to the form. And let's see over here, data.name. So we're going to pull from the data. Again, I'm console logging the data itself that should be coming through here on submit. Let's refresh this one more time here. I want to verify X, 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 X. Let's do One more time, Control Shift I. ID undefined, that's okay. Props.id in this case is undefined. Data is right here. But again, in this case, cosmic object name still coming through as no information there. So data in this case, cosmic object name should be, let me see if that has to do with how I change things back in app.tsx. See if this is, because I remember we did have, oh, I think it was actually back here, data table, right. Field name. Let's see. Let's say flex one. No. Let's see. Let's refresh over here one more time. Got all this information loaded up. Again, X, 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 X. Submit. Control Shift I. And the object right after here, cosmic object name. Again, if we're saying data dot, let's see our contact form back over here. And again, choose name, we're saying data dot name. And it should be HTML4. Let's see if it matches up. HTML4 type, constellation type, placeholder, got cosmic object name. Okay, and in the register, which is updating our store over here, and we go ahead and do that, let's see. Register cosmic object name. That's what should be passed here for name. But we can see the name. Let's give it a refresh one more time here because I wasn't seeing those placeholders actually. Okay, there's our placeholder of name. Let's make sure that we're seeing the correct thing here. There we go. Okay, we are looking at the correct input. So the name in this case, we've set equal to name as well. The register is cosmic object name, which is what it should be. And we've got all the same code across the board here. So if we're submitting it, if it's not getting that information, again, data.name in this case, let's see if I can do a console.log of data.name. Let's do a refresh here. Say X. Submit. Okay, undefined, I believe in this case. Data.name is still undefined for us. So if data.name is undefined, and that's why we're not putting it into choose name, then we've got to determine here, again, data, we've got any. We've got contact form props, ID of string here. We've also got our server calls. Now, again, though, the data itself, we should be able to get from the form. Shouldn't be any reason why we can't get data.name from the form. But what I want to see is how, when we actually submit this, again, the register is cosmic object name. So let's see here if I can look at the states. When I type in here, I want to see if it's actually updating. So let's see let's go a little higher because this should be right up here inside of our form, our contact form. There we go. There's our state. Let's see if we've got, okay, we got our store here. Redux context 2. Let's say, check here as well. Let's check the form itself. See, unsubscribe. I'm going to state here. Let's try to see some visible changes here. See if I can expand. See here as well. So the state is being managed here in contact form. Now, the way in which they're doing it is a little bit odd, but let's see. Handle submit. We've got use form in this case. Use form, we're importing from React Hook form. We're instantiating use form here, dispatch. And use store, data any, event any. Props.id in this case. What's coming through for props.id we can see is undefined. Console log of data, which is right here, again, is showing us that still this cosmic object name is not coming through here for data.name. Now choose name, I want to see this one more time. Choose name, state.name. State.name, name of cosmic object. Ah, okay, so it's probably going to match up with this, I believe. Name of cosmic object. So let's go back over to where we were in contact form. And I believe it's got to be, we've got name of cosmic object. Instead of this, I believe it's got to be name of cosmic object. Let's go ahead and refresh it here. Let's say X here. Go ahead and do X. Okay. Sorry about that. There's a bird kind of close to me here. All right.
No worries.
Okay, name cosmic object. Still not coming through here. Let's bring this back to cosmic object name. So again here, if we're getting data.name, if data.name is console log and continuing to log nothing for us here, let's try a few other things here. I want to try again the data though, the data that's coming through, we are logging up here before we log the props actually, which are over here. And these are all our props. But what we're looking at here again is data itself. So data.name. Okay. Let's try something like this. Let's try something like, again, looking back at this root slice here, reducers, we're going ahead and we're taking the state.name is equal to action.payload. Now state.name is going to be the name of the cosmic object, which is passed with our state here. So let's go back over to contact form. The name of the cosmic object is what should be passed through for here for data.name. Just one moment here. Let me see if this is, I'm gonna try something real quick here. Test. Just to really distinguish what we're looking at here in the console. So let's see here. Let's submit. Control Shift I. There's our test. There's our object. Okay, so again, in this case, data is coming through here, but when I do, let's try here, choose name, and then data.name. So let's try that one more time. Let's go back here to our form. Let's go over here. Form. Submit here. There's our test object. Okay. So choose name in this case, the payload is undefined. If I do something like data.type, let's try that. Data.type should give us a value here. If data.type gives us a value, then we know that it's something to do with that function of choose name. Okay, so let's see here, root choose name. This would actually be, excuse me, choose type. So let's go ahead here and let's refresh. And let's go here, let's see. Okay, payload is undefined in this case. But if it's really going ahead here and not pulling as we can see here data.type, let's try just data.type without choose type. Submit here. And here's the test, undefined. So data.name, data.type, all that information isn't really coming through for us here. If I do the choose type, then there's still no payload that's coming through for us there. But let's see here. Again, the state that's being managed is store. We've got right over here, and that's ultimately what's being passed over here. Let's do a console log of store.getState. Back into here. Let's go ahead and type this in once more. Submit. Okay, so again, in this case, console.log store.getState. Let me indicate here where it is because we can get lost in those other console logs there. Let's do X here. And there's our test objects. Okay. So store.getState for name, we've got name of cosmic object. And this is ultimately what we're going to be passing here.
Mhm.
We've got our object here, which is store.getState, and that's ultimately, we want to see it after I've gone ahead through all these steps. So let's see it just before we go ahead and actually pass that information to server calls to create this record. I just want to see what that looks like for us. Okay, so over here, there's our test object. Okay, so in this case, if this is what we're creating, store.getState, and we're passing this into create, which is over here inside of server, create is right over here. We can see the error itself appearing for us. So it's not getting information from the form itself when we pass it in here as our data. So we'll have to see here how it's expecting it. So it looks like it's expecting it in the form of, in this case, an object. And so contact form, when we submit this, store.getState, as we saw here, is an object with all these different fields. But data in this case, again, we want to make sure on submit data any that the data is being passed properly here. So again, that props of ID is undefined. We can see here props ID is undefined. And then the console.log of data here, we can see is also undefined. So it appears that the issue with this one, let's see this object as well one more time. Here's this information coming through here. Choose name, choose type, all those bits and pieces there. It's not actually working with that information properly. But let's see here. Let me see this object that's being passed over here. We've got constellation, cosmic object name. So kind of strange names for us. So we have state.name. We update all of these different values, name with the name of the cosmic object, type, and all of that before we go ahead and submit it. So dispatch in this case is going to update our store, or it should at least. So again, all these bits and pieces here, let's see. If props.id, in this case, there is no props.id, as we could see as we could see before, that is undefined. So we've got to make sure, we've got to find a way to pass the props of ID in this case to the submit. But the data, let's see all of our form information down here. Here's all of our form information: cosmic object name, type, constellation, spotting location, who discovered this object. When we're sending up this information, let me go back over to server. Here we've got the data being logged itself that we can see coming through. See it right down here. What we tried to send from that form. It should, in this case, right, fail to fetch data from our server. In this case, this is going to be create. We've got a console. Let's go ahead and do a console error of data. And I should be able to, let's type this one more time here. Let's clear this out. Start fresh. Here and see. So there's our object itself in the error, console.error here, of the data itself. Okay, so the data, when we pass it through here again, is an object. We're sending it, in this case, to an incorrect location here. But let's do a console log up here of the data. I'll actually do a console.error of the data here, because the data here is actually going to be data different than the data here. So let's go back over to here. Let's refresh. Here. Let's see our console error, which is right here. There's our object. Okay. So I've verified now that the data that we're trying to pass here is none of it is being passed, right, from that create over here in contact form. So if none of it's being passed here, then the way in which we're setting up register here, this, I see this input, we've got like, we're expanding register, and then we have cosmic object name. Register is right up here as our state. And handle submit, again, this is going to fire off once we submit our form here. What register should really be, as we type in here at the moment of submission, it should really be updated with all those form values. So let's see if I can find, again here, contact form. Go right here. Okay, so let's start to type in here a little bit of information. And our form, let's see. Other values over here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see here. So again, once I go ahead and type in this X here. Let's see here if there's anything that's being passed here. Props, contact form props, and then interface contact form props. Let's see where that's coming from. I see you submit up here from React Router DOM. But interface in this case. Let's see our interface where we're importing that from. All right, and let's see here. Let's try updating this. Just playing around with this code here for a moment. Let's give it a refresh. Let's give this a few more values. Okay. Let's verify over here. Okay. So again, in this case, we're doing a console.error, doing a console.log of tests, then get state in this case for store, which is what we're ultimately passing here. Now, dispatch, again, we're stating here, use dispatch. We're going to go over here and state choose name, data.name. But if we verified over here, then underneath props.id, here's the actual value here. Let's change some of these values then. Let's state data dot constellation. I'm going to change just that first one. So let's change that. Let's refresh. Try again here. Okay. Let's check here. All right, now in this case, again, choose constellation. Here's the test with the information. There we go. Constellation's going through now. So we've just got to reference them in the right ways, it looks like. We've got data.constellation. I should be able to actually reference them in a different way as well. I should be able to reference them directly by key. Just one moment. Just want to see in JavaScript, specifically our syntax here. Because sometimes the key names have spaces or things like that. So that's when it comes to actually working with the other ones there, because we've got constellation. Let's put that as a string. We've also got, in this case, discoverer. So let's change that to discoverer. And we'll use single quotes here. And then single quotes here. So we'll do discoverer here. We'll also, we want this to be uppercase D. So it's going to pretty much look like this for all of the other data points here. Let's also do data dot, instead of location like that, let's change it to location like this. Time, let's change this to time. Let's also do type. Let's change that to type. Or in this case, actually, let's, okay, I'm going to put data in this case for discoverer, but there's a certain way that it's expecting it to be formatted. Let me take a look at this object. Here's the error that we were getting before. Let's also take a look at this object that was, there we go. So constellation, it's got to actually match up here. So we're going to have here like cosmic object name.
Okay.
And this is how we can like handle those spaces that exist in the keys. Type is going to be, again, in this case, just type. So let's say just type here. Constellation. is going to just be, in this case, constellation. Time is going to be time of year. Location is going to be spotting location. And then discover who discovered this object. Those. All right. So let's refresh this one more time. Let's get a clean slate here. Let's put in some values here. Let's submit. Let's do Control-Shift-I. And now here's our test object. Okay, so name is the only one remaining here. That still remains an issue for us. Let's see. So name, the one that I'm accessing here, it's cosmic object name. But let's check a few more of these objects here. Right, cosmic object name is what we're trying to access over here. But let's go over to root slice. Cosmic object name. Let's say this. Okay, so we got a little bit different here too. Name of discoverer, but it's still getting that. So I don't believe it's actually based on this one. Let's go back to our form here. And cosmic object name is what we're registering here. So it should be registering to that one. But let's see. Register, we've got spotting location and who discovered this object. So they all are mapping except the last one, cosmic object name. So let's see why. So cosmic object name, again, in this case, I've gone ahead and stated cosmic object name here. We're taking the data for cosmic object name from there. But register, in this case, let's see, register, that's from use dispatch. And choose name should be data cosmic object name. But right here, if cosmic object name is giving us nothing from there, from the data, then the data, let's see. The data then is our problem. So let's see the get test here and see if, okay, yep, everything except name. HTML4 name, type constellation. Let's check over here one more time. Name type constellation. Name type constellation. Initial state name of cosmic object. So here state.name is equal to action.payload. Now choose name in this case is going to take that state.name and set it equal to the payload. State.name is going to update from name of cosmic object to whatever it is that we pass in there, the action.payload. So the issue then is probably that action.payload. So HTML4 name cosmic object name, let's see, is what we're pulling from that form.register name. Ah, okay, it's just the mismatch of the name there. So I've got to set the name equal to, in this case, cosmic object name. Let's try this one more time and it should show us everything we need. Go here. Submit. Now there's our test object. And there we go. We got all the values. Perfect.
All right.
All right. So we figured out that issue there. We know that we're packaging up all the information we need here. to create this new object. But now what we've got to do again is we verified here again that we've got that information and the data that's being passed in here. I can go ahead and console.error it. The console.error is actually going to show us that we've got all those values here, which is perfect. Now, let's go ahead and remove this console.error of data. And we've just got to verify the correct endpoint here. So the correct endpoint for us, let's go ahead and determine here. We've got a path of / celestial objects. And typically when we create new items, we send a post request to this individual endpoint. Now, this individual endpoint, if we go back over to app.tsx, you do have your website URL here. Right, or in this case, we've got, let's see, storage bucket. This could be our place where we can go ahead and send those. So let's go ahead and state here that we want to send this up, but just a moment here because we're going to need to send up some unique values here. In this case, our collection, celestial objects. So there's going to be a bit of information we're going to need inside of here. So let's see here. All right, so we've got all of our data pretty much set up here to add. We've just got to send off this request to the particular location here. So we've got our information. We should have a Firebase access token as well. Just a moment here. Let's see. All right, let's check over here as well. Back with their documentation here for a post request. Start here. And let's try web here. We've already gone ahead here and done our installation steps here. We are able to go ahead and pull collections as we saw before. Now let's see Firebase. Okay, so this is Firebase, but I would like to actually check our Firestore documentation here. Go right over to here. I'd actually like to see, let me see if I can find Firebase documentation here, Firestore documentation. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we can see different information here to create a new document, right? So in this case, we've got just an example of how they could be formatting it, right? A collection ID, et cetera, et cetera. They should have examples of adding here. Let's see. And so in this case, we are currently, when it comes to Firestore, let's just double check our, I'm going to move this over a little bit here. Let's get a little bit more information about our settings. Okay, looks like that's just our defaults here. Keep it maybe a little bit wider. All right. So let's see here our project settings as well. Got our project number in this case. We've also got right here our web apps we've already set up. Firebase. And let's see some samples actually. Firestore. See here. Cloud integration. So they have a few other examples here as well of a to-do app. But not quite the same as what we're doing here. So let's see if I can find, let me go back over to server. And again, we already know we're going to target a different endpoint. We know the method's going to be post. We know that we're going to have an access token that we've got to include here to authorize that sort of request we're going to make. So let's hard code this right now. I'm going to go ahead and send you a link here, and we're going to go ahead and drop this one in. But let's go ahead and replace it. I'm going to indicate right here where we're going to replace the information. So right here, I'm going to paste into the chat and go ahead and replace what you see there with what's in the chat right now.
Just copy link.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
we
and then
actually the whole string itself you should be able to copy. Because I think
that's what I did.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. All right. So this is good for us here. What I'm going to do is, again, because we don't have this code in any sort of version control or anything where it's like where it could be publicly accessed, I'm just going to go ahead and paste in that project ID. I think you've got it
Okay.
from here. Yeah, we got it from over here, project ID. Let's grab this. Grab all this right here. And let's go back over to server where we're going to be sending this call from. Let's drop in here instead of interpolating it from the config object. Let's drop the string right in here. And we've also got databases. We've got default indicated here, documents, and then celestial objects. So I'm going to leave default in place for us for now here. But default we can come back to in just a little bit. We can continue testing things out here and following the errors. So
Okay.
I'm going to leave things in place here now. We've got our method of post set, content type application JSON. Let's go ahead and change this one to authorization. Actually, I'm going to remove these two and replace them with authorization. And authorization is where we're going to put that Firebase access token. So
Okay.
the access token, I want us to identify where we can find that. Just a moment here. Okay, so we should be able to generate, yes, okay. Generate an access token. So I'm gonna go ahead here and send a link here in the chat. And if you could open it up in your browser here, we can take a closer look.
All right. So just copy and paste it.
Yep, you could copy paste it right into the browser. Actually, we're gonna go to the
Okay.
browser right over here.
Oh.
Mhm.
Copy
Yeah, we're just
link.
gonna drop it in.
Okay, I see.
Mhm.
Yeah, let me okay, there we go.
All right, perfect. All right, so this should be, again, I sent the link here just so we could be looking at the documentation from your account. So
Mhm.
it would give you exactly what you need here. Let's authenticate with an ID token here. Let's see. With an access token. Let's see their code here for getting an access token. All right, so let's go ahead and click here. All right, let's go back here. And so what they're telling us to do here, let's see here. Okay. Let's authenticate real-time requests. There we go, authorization bearer access token. So we need an access token to be generated for us. And in this case, in order for us, we need to generate that file, that key file. But they're basically saying generate new private key at the bottom of the service account section of the Firebase console. So let's go to this one. Let's go to, again, the service account section right here. And let's generate new private key. So in this case, they're basically saying path to service account key JSON. Let's generate this new private key. Let's give it a moment here. Hey, there's our JSON file. It looks like it just downloaded it here. So I'm going to go ahead and
Okay.
open this one up. Let's open it here. So there's all this information here. And what we can state is for this file, we can have it stored as like a firebase.json file. So what I'll go ahead and state here, although we've got, okay, let's see what other information. We have an auth URI, we have a token URI, but the bearer key is something that's actually generated for us. So what I'm going to state here then is wherever this file is, I want it to be moved into here. Let's go over to here. Let's state, I'm not sure if we want to, I'm sorry, I don't want to go into any sensitive information there, but I just want to find this file. And I want to move it. Perhaps we can move it this way. Yeah, we should be able to move it right into here. There we
Okay,
go.
there, yeah, right there.
So let's go ahead, let's control click on this and let's rename it
So,
to, we could just call it in this case, service account key.json. And then
just
A.
one
Mhm.
one word.
All one word, but capital A and capital K for account and for key. And there we go, and for key as well. Just so that'll be pretty clear for us there.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead here and click, and let's hit enter and save that. So now that's saved, and it exists at the same level as all our other pieces over here. But I can see that components, all of this looks like it's inside of SRC. So what we could state here then is, we need a bit of code to generate this key again. So let's go back over to the server here. And the key itself again, sorry, we're going to be generating this in a different way. So let's see how I can go ahead and utilize this. We've got the path to the service account key.json admin.initialize app, credential admin credential service account. So that credential is ultimately what we've got to pass over here. So let's copy this and let's go ahead and drop this in to the top. We could even potentially drop it inside of the logic here. So I'll paste this in. Now, service account, the path to this individual service, let's go higher up. We're going to go to just that. Right, actually, if we go one level higher, then we've got all these other files. But let's see what we've got again at this level. Node modules, that looks like it's pretty much our highest level according to what we can see over here. So if it's at the level of node modules, just want to make sure that service account key.json is at the same level as modules. Yep. So I can indicate here that that is indeed the path to the file we want. So let's actually go back here. Package lock.json, we are seeing the service account key. So let's type in service account key.json to make it exactly the same there. We've also got, let's see here, the credential itself is what's going to be returned to us. And so credential in this case is what we want to be a part of this, this information here. So if I go ahead and I set up initialize app with admin in this case, then admin.credential should be what we need to put in there. Let's go back to our other documentation we were at over here. And let's see their example. They have service account key listed here. They have scopes. They, in this case, have a JWT client, but I don't believe we actually have to go that far. Let's go back just a little bit further here. I believe we were looking at an example up here before, but that's okay. So we're sending it to this particular location. We're doing service account here. We're getting the credential. Now, in order to get that credential and pass it, just a moment here. Okay. I'm going to paste a little bit of code here. And I'd like us to paste it just right here, okay?
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to send this in the chat now here. And all this code, let's just go ahead and paste right there on that line.
Okay. And okay,
Yep.
Right here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, right there. All right, cool. So what we're going to see now is whether or not we're actually able to generate that custom token there. So on submission here, or any other errors that pop up. So let's see over here. Looks like the error itself is right over here with authorization. So, excuse me. So what I could do then is I could set here console log. Let's just do, XYZ for this for now. It doesn't quite matter. Just want to get it functioning. All right, let's do all this. Oops. Let's do X, 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 X. Submit. And let's go back over to here. Excuse me. So we should be seeing a Firebase access token coming through for us here, but create is firing all of this off. Requires not defined here, server line 25. So require in this case, just a moment. We've got bar of admin, but require, I believe I need to import from React here. So let's see here. All right, let's see. Let's see here. So we don't necessarily need to use actually require in this case, but let's stay just a moment here. All right, in this case, var service account, we could go ahead and import. We could import from service account. Well, in this case, we're actually just going ahead and requiring the file, which should be fine for us. But if require is, let's see, I should be able to use it actually maybe outside the context of this function. So let's move it right over to here. Yeah, let's see. And let's verify over here, Firebase admin. Let's go ahead and move this back inside our function. Okay. So again here, let's see. Require is not defined in this case. So we'd also, in this case, let me state. Let's do Control C here to shut down our server. Or maybe there's a different shortcut to shut down the server here in Vite. Is it Control C or another keyword?
I think it is Control C. That's
All right,
weird.
It's kind of odd. Okay, so I can probably just go ahead and create a new terminal here. If I go up to terminal and then new shell, I can do a new one here, and I should be able to do our command here to install Firebase admin. Let's do Firebase admin. Let's enter here. And after we go ahead and run this.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Just after we run this installation, it should understand the required there.
Okay. And then basically you'll be able to catalog, update, delete, and stuff like that.
Yeah, at this point, we're just trying to get the information to get sent up there, which involves like all the sort of like credentials that we have to send with the post request in order to have them authorized.
Okay.
Yeah, and that typically, once we get that done for create, then we'll have to just set it up for delete and for update, and that'll be a pretty straightforward process for us. It's just this initial
Gotcha.
sort of setup that takes us a bit of time. Yeah. So let's see if that's having some issues here. Maybe it's because the application is running over here. Let's see. Let's go back up to see. Okay, so it looks like it installed over here. And now let's go ahead and refresh. And let's add another object here. Let's submit and let's take another look. So requires not defined in this case for Firebase admin. But if we're importing Firebase admin, let's go ahead and set these up. We could potentially set these up as imports at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these. And let's go back up to the top here. And let's set these up as imports. And so what we'll state here is import all as admin from, and we'll say Firebase admin. And we also want to go ahead and state here, import service accounts from, I'm going to state dot dot forward slash dot dot forward slash service account key dot JSON. Now, service account key dot JSON, we've got this just as an object here, but I've got to actually, let's just export it default. And I'll say service account key. Set this equal to this object here. So we're going to export this one. Well, this is actually, excuse me, this is just a JSON file. So we should be able to just directly access it there. Let's go ahead and refresh here. Now, Firebase admin, let's go back over to app.tsx and see here. Or excuse me, this looks like it was our other form. I got to get rid of this file here. I got to get back to that form. So not the individual form itself. I believe that we were working in server.ts. So this is how we get that individual JSON file. Let's get rid of service account here. And let's refresh here. Okay, and let's see over here again, we've got our const of token. And we've got import all of admin from Firebase admin. Now, I want to see if the issue here is all of our other code up here. Let's bring this up anyway. And let's bring this up here. Let's refresh here. Now we're importing all as admin from Firebase admin. But what I really want to state over here is kind of like we had it over in app dot. We have Firebase Firestore. You can see that we've got all these different components. So Firebase Firestore, we've got Firebase admin. Let's see if this component is what's breaking things for us. Okay, let's try here. See if this is breaking things for us. Okay, so it's okay, different error that we're seeing. Now, in this case, admin is not defined. We're seeing this error again. Let me click here, save this out. Let's refresh. Okay, so the issue then in this case is our first line. So let's see here. We already did run npm install Firebase admin. So let's see here. Firebase admin we do have listed over here. So let's see. Right. Okay. So in this case, the require logic would not work for us, but one moment. Let's see again one more time there. And I am going to have to unfortunately hop off in just a moment here. But
Okay.
I see they use this syntax directly. And so if we utilize here this same syntax, then we state here dot dot forward slash dot dot forward slash service account key dot JSON. Then it should for us. Let's see here, let's refresh. Require is not defined here. So require is not built in for us. It's something we'd have to set up.
Okay.
See here. One more moment just to. Right. So they're giving us just basically a different way of accomplishing this, but there's like a different syntax that we should be using than this. This is more like it looks like this is just pure JavaScript, but we're using TypeScript. Unfortunately, I do have to go, Matthew, at this point.
Okay. Yeah, we'll pick this up tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. But we'll talk soon, okay?
Sounds great.
All right. Bye-bye, Matthew.
Bye.